in a world where only one can survive. In a world where you must pick your side. Who will be the victor in the greatest battle known to mankind? This is the story that will be told till the end of time. The story of the introvert versus the extrovert. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam. Wow, okay, so you read a poem too.
What did you think?
That was really good. I wasn't expecting that, obviously.
Right, guys, this is off the cuff. I've just got something written down that I did this morning. And it's not like even added in. Yeah.
Close this.
Your proof, I haven't added this in. We've just literally just done this. So, yeah, you thought that was good.
Yeah, you read a poem.
I wrote a poem. Okay, so Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the Minimalistic Muslim Podcast, episode 4.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4 in German.
4. وعدنا 3 4 in Arabic. And 1, 2, 3, 4 in Spanish.
Ana dulce net in Korean.
And 1, 2, 3, 4.
Very good. I'm out. Okay. So episode 4. So how have you felt? This is episode 4.
I'm actually it feels good. I mean, it's flown by how many we've made so far. But yeah, it feels really good to be back.
So just to remind you, this is your host, Faisal Rahman, and with me is my co-host,
Iman.
How have you been this week?
I
think I ask you this question every week.
Yeah, you did.
How have you been? How are you doing?
Yeah, I've been good. Yeah, it's not much has been going on.
What's been going on this week? Must be something.
Actually,
a lot of work.
I mean, actually,
or a lot of play.
Thing is, like, I've been helping my brother and sister quite a bit for their work, but I haven't really doing much myself. I've just been chilling most of this week, actually.
Okay. Right. So me, I have been busy with work. And always. No, I'm trying to take some time out to prepare for this podcast.
Okay.
This is going to be another interesting episode. The reason, the introduction was so. Well, how do you define the introduction?
It's very like Avengers, kind of.
Very dramatic.
Yeah, very dramatic.
Okay. There's a reason.
Okay.
I was trying to make it dramatic, and there's a reason for that. When I wanted to look at this subject, when I was doing my research, everywhere I looked, whether it was on the search engines or social media, this subject was people write it like the introvert versus the extrovert. Yeah, it was like that. Okay. So at first I didn't really think much of it. So I'm just reading these articles and watching these videos. And the more I'm consuming, I'm thinking the way the picture is being portrayed, it's almost like, you're here or you're there. Yeah. So to kind of give it a bit of a picture, I made that drama. So it's almost like you said, it's very dramatized. It's very like, did it come across like, oh, which side are you? Yeah. So that was the concept. So I'm glad that's kind of come across. We're going to kind of look into this argument of introverts, extroverts, ambiverts, and see these different personality types and see why are we talking to one another as if it's me versus you. Because that's what I was kind of getting across. I mean, I understood the message, like the variances and the differences between the personalities, but why it was spoken in such a manner, it's almost just like, can't the two coexist? All right. And that's what I want to break up. I want to break down, because from my perspective, I think that the better you know yourself, the more value you can create for yourself and others around you. And it's like a mission for myself to just get to know myself better, my strengths, my weaknesses. And this is something I suffered from as a child. I felt myself like being that kid who was like, oh, he's so quiet.
Yeah, so shy.
Why are you so quiet? Why are you so shy? Speak up. As a child, I would be like, socially awkward. Is there something wrong with me? Okay, trying to think something, make something up. Right. Small talk conversations. And for years, I would have thought maybe I'm like that. But then I knew about myself that if I spoke about something which I enjoyed, or I heard a conversation about something that I had some passion for, I would be very interested in joining that conversation and giving my opinions on something like that. So whether I was shy or not, but like I said, growing up not knowing, it's almost like the culture had me behaving in a certain way, and I just felt that wasn't me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I used to enjoy sports at school.
Mm-hmm.
I was participating in that, so I didn't think I had an issue there, because I was just like, yeah, I enjoy socializing with my friends.
Yeah.
But I also knew that about myself, that I'd like to go away and sometimes just go into my own head. But I didn't know how to explain that. I didn't know what it was. But now it was up until I came across a YouTube video it was a TED Talk by a woman called Susan Cain.
Okay.
And she did a TED Talk. And when I watched that video, I mean, prior to that, I had known introverts, extroverts, but the way she just explained it,
yeah,
it was just like, okay, this is a different perspective. And I really enjoy that video. And I think it's got something crazy, like so many million views on YouTube as well. It was one of these videos like how we mentioned about when we were talking about the education.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of those ones that really hit home with a lot of people. I want to kind of break down in terms of these two camps, what it means to be an introvert, what it means to be an extrovert, and why we have this, and what's this all about, kind of a thing, and how do people go living their lives knowing who and what they are. So before I do, I just want to remind you that you can listen to this podcast on our website, which is www.minimalisticmuslim.com. You can also listen to this podcast and the ones previous on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and others. But if you go to the website, it will tell you where you can listen to this. Also, if you want to know show references and show notes, you can also find them on the website. So remember to check that out. Right. So, Iman.
Yes.
Do you have any concept of the idea of an introvert and extrovert?
Okay, so introverts in my mind has always been like how you said that they weren't really socially out there. That you would see them in their room just chilling on their own, and like they like to be on their own, like that kind of person. And the extrovert would be more of a loud, proud kind of person.
Okay.
You know, like how mum is, that kind of stuff. But when you like, it's not like not caring about the outcome, but it's just like very much you dive into a lot of things.
Okay.
The introvert's more like thinking and just pulling back sometimes, feeling you shouldn't, like, you know.
So would you say your dad's an introvert and your mum's an extrovert?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the term introvert and extrovert was first coined by a psychiatrist from Switzerland in the 1920s by the name of Carl Jung. Now, what he says, and I don't know if this was done before, but I think papers have people have written about it since, and they've kind of attributed everything to Carl Jung. Not to say these things didn't exist before, but I don't know how people explained it, because we've come from two different eras, and this is what I'll go into later as well. So what he said is that first and foremost, he didn't believe that you were either or, like 100%.
Oh, yeah.
So he didn't say that you were 100% extroverted or 100% introverted. Okay. What he did is he said that you tend to lean to one side more than the other.
Okay.
Okay. And then what he also says is that some people who find themselves a bit of both, he gave you a special category, which was called as an ambivert, which is kind of having the best qualities of both different personality types. Okay. And there's various tests you can do online in order to kind of work out, where you sit on all of this. But I think the first, the goal here is to understand yourself and know who you are, therefore that you can be the best version of yourself, and not feel pressured to be something because society dictates that it wants you to be a certain way. Okay. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, then I think there was a guy called Hans again. Hans Eysenck.
Hans, there you go.
Yeah. So he was German, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So he basically added to his theory by saying that it's not just, when I say adding, he kind of said that all the introvert and extrovert argument is all about is how people kind of get to their mental energy levels. Like, how do they recoup from their mental state
Okay.
All right. So some people, then that's where he kind of broke it down. So some people love to be in social gatherings. Okay. And they find that they are at their most best when they're around people and they have that energy, and they'll take all of that in, and you'll see them in their comfort, and they're just being this certain way. Okay. So that's what you see with a lot of extroverts.
Yeah.
Introverts, what he's explaining is that the way they charge is that if you take that individual and put him into that scenario, it's almost like you're decharging that person.
Oh, so they don't like it.
They don't like it.
Yeah.
They don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, comfortable.
Right? In the sense that, not to say they're antisocial, it's the energy that they feel like, you know what? Okay.
It's like too much for me.
Yeah. I need to kind of get back and charge up again and fight. And that's where they are best. That's where they work best. Okay. Now, these are the two fundamental differences. Other than that, like I said to you initially about myself, growing up, I now came to reason that I'm an introvert. Okay. And I'm someone who does a lot of thinking. I'll do something, I'll be someone who works something out, and then I'll think, okay, the pros and the cons, be very analytical with a lot of things. And then I'll be like, okay, let's do this. Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said, you gave example of your mother or any other extrovert, they tend to act more or act first and then do the thinking later. Okay. Now there's pros and cons to both. And it's quite interesting because Islam also talks, when we look at people, not talks, when you study history, you'll see these different characteristics pop up as well. And generally they're a bit of a yin and a yang.
Yeah.
So like where you see one, you see the other, and they kind of complement one another. And this is where I want to focus to say that the argument doesn't have to be, and this is not what I'm putting down. It's like you're choosing one or the other. It's a matter of, these are the realities. There are these types of people out there, and together, so an introverted person and an extroverted person, when they work together, they can be quite powerful. All right. So it's almost like you've got one who's doing all the thinking, and then you've got one who's doing all the driving. Okay. Together, it works really well. And that's a pattern you'll see when I break down in terms of when we do a little quiz at the end as well. Okay. We'll do a little quiz in terms of, first we'll identify, like, as we're doing the differences in introverts and extroverts, and then I'll throw some people at you, and then you can tell me what you think they are, right? We'll do that towards the end. But like I said, when people generally look at introverts, they think, oh, he's so shy. Yeah. Low self-esteem, shy, and all this and the other. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but it's not a key factor. Someone who's quiet, reserved, generally tends to be the one that would like to have deep, meaningful conversations. They're not really in it about the chit chat, the small talk. Okay. And this is where, as human beings, I think it's very important to do a lot of pondering over yourself. And sometimes in life, you can learn a lot about yourself just through how you behave and deal with life situations. Myself, like I said to you, growing up, I felt myself as an introverted kind of person. Where I am today, I feel more that I can be in a place where I can, for a period of time, become slightly extroverted, purely because of the fact of what my work entails me to do. Right? So running your own business, dealing with different kinds of people, you have to be a certain kind of personality to be able to deal with that properly.
Right.
And sometimes you have to go out and do things which not necessarily you want to do, but it's for the betterment of your business. So certain skills like that have taught me to kind of, okay, let's do it now, and we'll do all of the thinking and the working out later. Okay. Yeah. And a lot of it, when I see, for example, your mum, when she used to do certain things, I'd be like, okay, there's certain things about that I like. I like the slight impulsiveness where you can just say, let's just get up and let's just do this. Yeah. So I would say it's nice to break that routine, but as a person who strives to, I would like to think of myself as someone who's always striving to better themselves, that this is something that I look within different people and say, I want to learn that skill. And I think as people, the more we do that, then but then we become more balanced in Carl Jung's study. Then we all we all fit into this category of ambiverts where we can be the best of both. There'll be times where I'll be like, listen, I need to be alone.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. When I do these podcasts, I sometimes get away because I'll sit there and I think, right, well, I want to think about something.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something with a bit of meaning and some depth. I can't do that with a lot of noise. Right. So you'll find me, I'll disappear for a while. Okay. And I'll sit there and I'll be in my head and work things out. And then when I'm ready, I'll be right. Okay. Once I know I've got something out the way, then I can carry on with my life kind of a thing. But whenever I start something, I have to give it 100%. So, but saying that, again, that's your style of how you do things. I know people, and there's many people out there who would just switch on the mic, start talking, and there they go. All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But then that's what I mean. You've got a balance of two different kinds of people, but the important thing is to know yourself. Don't put yourself in a situation where you think that you're not giving yourself all of the, you're not giving yourself all the tools to do what is required that you need to do. All right. So you've got to be comfortable in your own skin. You've got to know what you're all about. And this is the purpose of this podcast, to kind of let people know, to take that little deep soul searching for a bit, say, who are you? And it's perfectly fine to be the way that you are. But then it's understanding what motivates you, how do you get things done, and try to find a way where you can learn from one another. So, for example, the introvert can learn the social skills of an extrovert. Okay?
Right.
And the extrovert can learn the contemplation and seclusion from the introvert, both which are required for one's well-being. Okay? So by being together or being in certain environments, you can learn that if you have the ability and if you want to be the learning type.
Yeah.
Some people are quite happy being who they are. And then the problem tends to happen is they just expect you to be a certain way. And the problem in today's society is that we have, as Susan says in her book, a social bias towards extroverts. Okay. And what she means by that is that when we start school, back in the days, what used to happen is that people would sit in rows behind one another.
Yeah.
You worked autonomously. You worked on your own a lot of the time. Now you go to school.
You got like round tables and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you find school? How are people sitting in school these days?
Yes, in school. I remember, so there was two types, because I've been to quite a few schools. There was two types of like seating. So one was like a round table and you'd have about 6 people on that table, 5, 6 people. Then another one would be like a row again, but there would be like 4 of you on that row, on that table.
Okay.
They'll be behind each other. But then there'll be like a lot of you on one table basically. You were never on your own.
Okay. So there you go. So you went from a situation where you'd sit in rows to a place now you've got 4, 5, 6, 7 kids looking at each other.
Yeah.
All right. So you're not looking straight towards the table. You're looking at each other now. Okay. So for someone who's a child who loves the interaction with people, they're going to thrive in that environment. The kid who's thinking, hold on, I just want a bit of quiet time for myself, is going to struggle. So Susan's argument is that it's all starting from the school. All right. Then let's take that model and you look at work and offices today. What you generally find is the same setup. You see open plan offices. I was quite fortunate that when I was in my banking days, I used to have a cabin.
Okay.
And so used to have, they were introducing, there were certain floors that they were just open. You just had little barriers where you couldn't see someone, but you could hear everything.
Okay.
But alhamdulillah, I was fortunate that, not knowing again that was this something I like, because I've been in both.
Yeah.
I've been exposed to both. But all I knew is that I felt comfortable when I was on my own in my office. You know, the door shut, it's quiet, and you can do your thing. And then eventually, if I needed to go out and get a cup of coffee, something, I could go out, start talking, have a little time with the guys, what's going on, and then come back into the office again. Okay. So I kind of got a bit of both worlds, but like I was saying, I was fortunate enough to have that. A lot of people today don't have that. So you'll find people who work so much better on their own or and when it comes to ideas and all of that, that it's almost like you're destroying them by putting them in that environment, because that's not how they thrive. Susan's, I'm going to quote quite a lot of Susan because
she really broke it down.
Yeah, like I said, I'll leave some links on the website, so you can go and see this TED Talk. But also if you get the opportunity to read the book. But she's really kind of gone through back history and seen like how things used to be. And before, like when she goes in the Western world, people, it was all about character. Yeah, and we spoke about this in
character, manners,
and it was about how to be an upright person. And we were explaining that's very important in our religion to be that way. Okay, so what she's explaining is that after the 20th century, the world has kind of shifted. We came from I think she talks more about America, but I'm sure a lot of people can kind of gauge with this, that in the West, there was a lot of agriculture going on. So people knew one another, spent a lot of time with one another. There was a lot of that. It was almost like a village lifestyle, okay? Then what happened is that in the 20th century, you had this arrival of business, big business, okay? And then you've had a lot of people now leaving their villages, going into the big cities to get into business and work like that. But with that, what's happened is that it's changed the mindset of how one should conduct themselves and how they are. So how she puts it, she goes, we used to be, the society would favor today now. She goes, the society favors the man of action over the man of contemplation. Right? So now it's all about get it done.
Do it now, yeah.
How are you going to get it done? Right? So the skill set required for such a person has changed. So it's no longer about, it's not as important as it was before about the moral character of someone. It's all about how charismatic are you? How well do you talk? Can you get the job done? And you're in that environment now where it's literally like that dog eat dog world. All right. So that's where you've come into. You've got to be a certain way. So
it's interesting.
So what she's saying, so you have to now almost prove yourself, okay, to be in that environment. And as that goes along, the books change given to that kind of new audience. So whereas people spoke about, the role models back in the days in America, like she says, with Abraham Lincoln, this is how he carried himself and this is how he should do. And, the morals and etiquettes of how one conducts themselves. To what's happened today now, she's going, the self-help books is all about how to win friends and influence people. So these have become the role models. And she's going that the people who write these books are amazing salespeople. All right. So if you look at the world today, that's what you see. You see people selling you things. You've got to be a certain way because she's saying you're living in an extroverted world. So it's and we're not talking about whether it's wrong or right. It's a matter of identifying that this is where the shift has happened. But in doing so, the introvert is being forced to behave in a certain way, which is going against his nature. The people who
adapt into it.
Yeah. So the people who used to contemplate, like remember that statement where I said they favor the man of action over the man of contemplation. So now you've got an audience where you're sitting there thinking, well, not even thinking, it's reacting. Let's get it done. And the man who would sit there or the woman would sit there and say, listen, we've got to strategize this. We've got to do it this way. They're the people that are being left behind to say, no, forget that. We don't live in those times now. And my argument is that society needs to understand that both have value and both bring so much more when they work together. And things need to change from the ground upwards. We need to look back at our school system. Ultimately, as we said in our previous episode, it's broken. So we need to fix that. But number two, we have to identify that people, as we're children, we learn differently. Some people need that recharge time. Some people need that time to, some like that social interaction. But if neither side, like for example, at the moment, the introvert knows what it is to be in the extrovert because that's the world we're living in. Yeah, but the extrovert doesn't know that how the other way should be. So the focus should be more on balancing that out. So they appreciate the fact that no, solitude is important. Stop talking is important. The name of her book was amazing. The name of her book, I can't find it now. Here it is. So it was called, Susan Cain, she wrote Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. Right? Wow. So, and that's what you see. You're seeing a lot of people jibber, jabber, jibber. Everyone's got something to say about something. Yeah. But a lot of people aren't processing what's being said. It's just like, I've got an opinion, I've got to get it out there. Yeah. So the deep, meaningful conversations aren't happening. And unfortunately, something that stimulates someone like me
He does.
Yeah.
the
So this
introvert.
this is one of the reasons
Right.
why I think this platform is such an amazing platform for people like myself, where they can be one with their thoughts, talk about things that they're passionate about, and put it out there to see if, you know, there are other people.
Yeah, other people.
Do you see? Because like, right, I mean, at the end of the day, when you switch on the TV, since this reality TV stuff has come in, all you see is extroverted people.
That's true.
Yeah, you see people who are loud and proud, and this is the way you got to be, and this is socially acceptable, and I've seen that shift take place. All right, I can't connect to that in the sense that, oh, okay. I mean, I can. When I say I can't connect to that, I don't see any sort of like, why am I being asked to be like this? I'm quite comfortable being the way I am, and society needs to understand that this is what needs to be done. I'm happy that people like Susan are pioneering certain systems and are working with schools, and there's certain companies now that are adopting this philosophy of things like quiet rooms where people can go and just recharge, deal with what they've got to deal with, come back out, and off they go again.
Is that new?
Yeah, so it's, but like I said, I think she wrote this book in 2012, all right?
Okay.
But all of this stuff, and she's kind of pioneering a lot of this stuff, and it's to kind of show that we need to relook at the system. And it seems as though, since it's all about being about the business, only one type of person is moving forward, and that's the extrovert, because that's what's required, right? It's like what Bill Gates says, right? Bill Gates says about himself that he's an introvert, but he came up with the idea, the theory, and all of that. But he goes, I need extroverts to sell the idea, because they'll be so energized and they'll bring all of that stuff to the table that they can do the selling for you. So it's just a strategy.
Yeah.
You can have someone who's doing all the thinking and getting everything ready, and then you just get the right person to say, right, now off we go, and they'll go and do it. So that's where the two harmonize with one another. So it's important. I've expected it, not expected it. I've seen it in my life with your mother.
Yeah.
A lot of my best friends are extroverted, and sometimes it's funny when we have these conversations. I'll think things through a lot. They'll be like, listen, let's just do this. And there have been times where I've just said, you know what, let's just do this. And I don't want to think about the outcome, and it's been enjoyable. But to me, that's not how I normally work. I like that. And that's one of the things, like I said, when you get to know yourself, to say it's nice to do that as well, because
yes, that's be spontaneous sometimes.
Exactly. If I continue doing what I'm doing, I'm not learning, and I'm a man who wants to learn and better themselves. So I think, subhanAllah, let's put these people around me as well, where I'm thinking, yeah, I can just let my hair down and go. But I wouldn't want that to be my norm. Likewise, my advice to those who do that off the cuff stuff a lot is to look at their lives and think, it's great, but it shouldn't. You have to realize that your decisions are impacting other people's lives who may not necessarily understand what you're doing. So they themselves have to kind of find that ambivert area to sit there and think, you know what, okay, I did that, now I've got to have that time to ponder and do all of that. Because our tradition, again, encourages that. When you look at world religions, a lot of people find themselves when they go into the wilderness, or they go
in a cave, or like on their own. Like in the movies, a lot they do that.
Well, look, movies are inspired from a lot of the times real time events. Yeah. But you see that you'll never see the epiphany happening in crowded, busy areas. Yeah, they need to be away, and something happens, and boom, the idea comes. So that's how the world is. We need to, like I said to you, we need to learn how to be a bit more still. I'm not saying that the world needs to be totally introverted, but that's where we are at the moment. We're a totally extroverted world. We need to kind of work out society. There needs to be more voices out there to ask for that change, so people like myself feel that, you know what, brilliant. You know, people understand one another a lot better, but you work together to be that force where you can better the world and better yourself and better understand yourself, more importantly. Okay, in terms of people, they generally say that 50% of the population is introverted, 50% of the population is extroverted.
Okay.
So every second person you're going to meet,
it's going to be an introvert, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's even more important that the world needs to be a bit more balanced and understand. And I'm happy that businesses are taking this into consideration, and there are changes being made in order to understand that. But there is a stigma attached. And like I said, my personal situation, and I'm sure there's other people that can relate to that, it was almost that social awkward situation that certain cultures expect you just to talk. You know, you put in an environment, why are you not talking? You know, and we started off like that. Like, that's how I used to feel, like, why are you not talking? And then you think to yourself, is there something wrong with me? Well, I've got nothing to say. Then you try to think of some small talk, which you're thinking, why am I even talking about this? I'm not, you know, it doesn't mean anything to me. But it's just talk. And that's if I'd known what I knew younger, then at least you can understand, all right, this is what it is. You don't sit there thinking to yourself that there's something wrong with me. Why am I not able to talk? All right. And it's like, there's a quote by Plato, if I can remember it. He says something like,
go on. You can remember it.
No, I can't remember it.
Oh, God.
It said something about people thinking, one second, Plato. I have to use my phone now to work this out. Okay, yeah, here we are. Okay, it says, wise men speak because they have to say something. Fools because they, sorry, said it wrong. Wise men speak because they have something to say.
Okay.
Fools because they have to say something.
Right. So to be wise, if you, okay, so.
So a wise person, they're saying, only speaks when he needs to speak.
Okay.
Where they're saying a fool
just speaks because
they need to speak.
Yeah.
All right. Now I'm not saying extroverts. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. All right. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that, because again, you've got to realize where these people came from. They came, and even when you look at our tradition, which we'll do, there was a lot of contemplation. These people lived in an era where there was contemplation was a very, very big thing. It's not heard of now. We don't live in that environment. We're reactionary. We've got to get up and go kind of thing. All right. So sometimes, my advice to the extroverts is to stop, think about what you're about to say, and do. But listen, it's a lot easier than for me to say it. Okay, I understand that. I appreciate that. But my goal here is just for everybody to understand which side of the spectrum you're leaning on. So again, I'm not saying that you are either or. It's where you're leaning on. Where's your default position? And then just to realize that let's work on ourselves and find a way where we can be the best of both people. And this is going to take a lot of work on yourself. You have to, number one, understand who you are, realize your strengths and weaknesses, be honest with yourself, and then look at the skill set and think, okay.
Try to bet yourself then.
Exactly. And yeah, and when we look at our tradition, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see a mixed. We don't even have to go through. If you look at history, before we touch about Islam,
right?
All right, you look at certain characters and you think some people thought a vision, some people did it through their actions. Okay,
yeah.
And there were certain times where things needed to be said. They didn't want to say, but they had to say it, and that was just the thing. Okay, so my greatest thing in history, which people can relate to, is looking at the argument of Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what do you see when you see both people?
So Malcolm X was obviously the introvert and Muhammad Ali was the extrovert. So what would happen is...
Why do you say Malcolm X is an introvert?
Yeah, because basically he would think a lot. Especially when you see his interviews as well, really interesting. He would actually proper think and have really, he was very logical kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And then Muhammad Ali would be very much, I'm the best kind of thing. He's very out there. You could tell who's an extrovert, sorry. And then when both of them worked together, they could get their message across really well. But
you saw that, right?
Yeah.
You saw one who was, and the trait is usually the introvert gets it first.
Okay.
So whenever there's a message being done, the introvert generally tends to get the message first. Why? Because they've been doing the contemplation, the thinking, and all of that. Okay. So they've been working it all out. The extrovert tends to get it later, but when they do, they become the driving force. So, whereas Muhammad Ali was very articulate, had a certain where Malcolm X had a certain personality about himself, and a certain trait where it's all, like you said, how he carried himself, how he spoke. He was in an era where, there's a lot of racism, as you know, and he had to almost be as good as the white man to be able to speak and get his message across and know that we are we are clever. We're clever people as well. We know what we're talking about. We understand. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you had, so he's challenging them on an intellectual level.
Yeah.
Then you had Muhammad Ali, who came out and won the people through his charismatic personality and through his extroversion and just off the cuff stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Which at times got him into trouble, but he was so good with his talking that he could get out of it, like almost like the boxing.
Yeah.
When he was in trouble, he knew how to get out of it. Okay. But when they both came together, you know, if you read, which I think you read Muhammad Ali's biography.
Yeah.
He says, one of my regrets that I have is I didn't get to spend a lot more time with Malcolm than I could have done because of his own passion. You know, he was a lot younger, but as a grown man, when he would reflect on his life, that's one of the things he says, I regret I didn't get to spend that much time with him. You know, there was so much more, you know, that we could have done together. But you see that. And that's just not going back too far in history. I forgot to ask you a question.
Okay. Hit me with it.
Where do you find yourself on the spectrum?
Okay. Okay, I don't think I'm an extrovert. If it was in a public situation, but how do it, like, for example, okay, when I'm with friends or people I know, then I'm an extrovert. I would very just talk it out. Like, I think most people are like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Outside, when I don't really know, I do like to keep to myself quite a bit. If I don't know someone, I won't, like, let's say it like this, like, I won't be the first person to speak. If someone starts the conversation, I will carry on, but I won't be the first person to start the conversation.
Okay.
So I'll, like, you know, just stay to myself, kind of like that.
Okay, let me make it easier. Let me see if I can help you. Okay,
go on.
When you look at the world,
Right.
because this is how they say people define, how the two personalities define things. Okay. So we've talked about how introverts generally like the solitude life. They like to be left on their own, so to recharge. When I say they like to be left on their own, it's very important that people don't get the wrong message and think, oh, so that means they're loners. They just want to be left alone. That's how they find their mental capacity needs to reach. It's like a phone when you charge it.
Yeah.
It needs, you know, different phones work different ways. For an introvert, it needs to be charged solitude. That when it's ready, when it's fully charged, boom, da 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 da. But it's got so much time that it knows it can work in that social setting. Okay.
Right.
But just to help you understand, I saw this image, and it said the word introvert and it said the word extrovert. Mm-hmm. But the way the words were written, introvert. So they had the word introvert. If you can imagine this in your head, so it had the word introvert. It was written in bubble letters, right? But the letters inside the word were colored. Okay. Okay. So you know you have like the eyes, but inside the eyes colored a color. All right. So let's say we choose blue. Yeah. So all the words was written in blue. Yeah. Introvert. Okay. Then you had the extrovert written, and this time the words inside wasn't colored. The background was colored, so you could see the outside of the word extrovert. Oh, okay. So what they're saying is that introverts are more internal beings. Mm-hmm. They look within themselves to find purpose and meaning and all of that. Okay. Yeah. Extroverts are sensory. They observe the situation, and once they see that, they take all of that in. Yeah. All right. So if I said to you, for example, let's say you're at school. Okay. And the teacher says, okay, I am. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So they're going to say to you, they're looking for they're reading a book and they're kind of looking up and says, right, who wants to read pages 5 or 6, right? And everyone puts their head up. Maybe someone puts their head down. Maybe someone's sticking their hand in the air thinking, pick me. Yeah. Where would you fit? What would you be? Okay. So I wouldn't want to try. I would like, this is something in the school as well, that even if you try to not make eye contact, because I wasn't like, for example, if I didn't want to read, because most of the time I didn't want to actually, even with questions like maths or anything, like, do you know this answer? Yeah. I hated to be picked, or like I didn't want to be picked. So I would always try to not make eye contact, but then most of the time people who do that do get picked. So then sometimes here and there I would just put my hand up just to hope I won't get picked, just to pretend like, oh yeah, I want to be picked so they won't pick me. But yeah, so I feel like in that situation, I'll be quite introverted. I wouldn't want to be picked. Did you have people in your class that were very pick me type people? Right. There was this one person who just always, like, I think 2 or 3 just always put their hand up. Yeah. Like, and it kind of makes you feel like, you know, it didn't make me feel good, like they know. Yeah. And then I don't. Or like I may have known the answer. Yeah. Like to a math question, but I'm not like confident enough, and I'm shy that maybe if it's wrong,
I'll get, penalized by it, which I wouldn't, but that's
Right.
how I feel.
Now, the thing is, you used the word shy,
Yeah.
and you said about my opinion being wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, shyness, which often gets that they think that it's related to being introverted, which I said actually doesn't. They're not related, because shyness means that you are fearful of what other people think of what you've just said or done. Okay, so you don't voice your opinion, you don't act upon your instincts because you think what are other people going to say. So it's that social judgment. Okay, that means shy. So a confident person doesn't think that. They think, I've just got to do something.
Yeah.
Now you could be introverted and be confident, which means I've thought something through. It needs to be done. I've got to get it done. Now people are gonna be upset with it. Then it's got to be done, but it needs to be said. Okay.
Okay.
So the important thing to realize is that there could be a part of you growing up in school where you thought you were being shy and you didn't want to be socially judged because you have things like peer pressure. And peer pressure generally happens when you have too much, like we said, that extroverted world. Everyone's looking at one another. Are you going to follow the crowd? And these are the things that usually get encouraged with that kind of environment, which is unhealthy for an introverted person. So you would say to yourself that you would lean more towards the introverted side, yeah?
Yeah.
Perfectly normal, okay? My advice to you is to look at someone like your mother and say, what social skills, amazing. She gets things done, right? And just take some of that stuff and think, well, that's good to know as well. So what you can do is think things through, but get them done.
Yeah.
As opposed to get things done and then think them backwards and think, well, what did I do? All right.
Yeah.
So you can learn that skill younger and think, all right, fine. There are these two personality types, or three personality types. I don't have to be this. I can be the best of both. But in order to do that, it needs work on yourself, and you've got to chisel yourself each day to say, no, I want to be a bit more like this. So when you're put in environments where you're asked to speak your mind, that will challenge your confidence.
Yeah.
Okay. When you're given ideas to think, what does Iman think? Don't just, then it gives you the opportunity to think, I'll just do what everyone else is saying and play the safe card, or I'll speak my mind in a manner like what Malcolm X would do, in a manner which needs to be said. But a lot of the times, so that's fine. So that's a little thing for you to think about, to think, well, what can I learn from, do I see myself more like my dad? Do I see more like my mum? Do I see, I don't feel like I'm neither of you. It's to understand that these things do exist. Know who you are, and then chisel your way and make yourself better. And so that when you're an adult, you've defined a certain kind of personality. You know how to deal with different kinds of situations.
Yeah.
There are times where listen, I need to be extroverted right now. There's times where I need my solitude. I need to just be calm and still. And then that's just a matter of being comfortable with yourself, knowing who you are, and dealing with that, inshallah. So just a couple of key points. So according to studies, the introversion is someone who's more comfortable, enjoys being by themselves. They're more in their head, and they're very deep thinkers. Okay. Ticks me, right? Extroverts, more sensory, like I said about the word with the introvert and extrovert. They see externally, okay, rather than and tend to be off the cuff kind of people. Not generally logical. They're very spontaneous, okay?
Yeah.
When I was at school, when I was at college,
okay,
in business, we learnt Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know if you've ever come across that.
Nope.
Okay. So Maslow, I forgot this guy now. So he was some guy who came up with this hierarchy of needs, basically telling you what defines a human being in terms of what they need, what makes them happy, all right? So, and he did it in a pyramid form. What do you think was sitting on top of that pyramid?
Business.
No, just as a human being, like, money and all of that. He talked about that.
Okay.
What do you think he put at the top? Do you think he put,
I don't know. Is it like a characteristic?
Yeah.
Okay. Confidence?
No.
Like being able to sell things?
No, I don't think it's a character. It's about what makes a person the most, Like, when is he at a state of happiness and bliss? When is he like, yes? When he's made it? When he's...
Oh, when he's made it.
Like, so, okay, so when you made it, like, in terms of what, like...
For example, like, let's say you've done so much work and you've achieved, like, your goal, basically.
Okay.
That's when you're most... I think that's when you're most happiest.
So where would you put money?
Money probably at the top then.
Okay.
Because a lot of business is driven by money, innit?
He's put money somewhere in the middle.
Oh, okay.
Okay. What he's put at the top is something called self-actualization,
Like,
which is to know
yourself.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. So there's no greatness or feeling of knowing yourself, like your capabilities. Once you've mastered yourself, I know my limitations, I know my strengths. It's almost like this argument we're having. Well, it's not so much an argument, it's more a discussion to sit there and say it's not a battle between the intro and the extro. It's a matter of understanding where you sit, and you will find joy in understanding who you are and realizing you don't have to be a certain way. There needs to be a lot more education. It needs to be spoken out a lot more, especially if it's happening from school time. Then people from school time need to realize that, no, there is such a thing.
Yep.
You know, you get these things. Oh, he's the quiet one.
Yeah.
Watch out.
You got
He's the quiet one. So you got things like that. He's the dark horse. Watch him. Society is defining this because we're living. This is the argument, which is why I'm so passionate and I am so agreeable with Susan to say we have a bias. You naturally are. The world loves the extrovert. Yeah. And this is why, because we live in an era where it's about consumption and selling. So the best salespeople are extroverts because they get their message across. They bring that energy. You leave a crowd and you're like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember going to a friend of mine who likes to go to certain seminars because he's very much extroverted.
Yeah.
And I can see that, you know, we have this conversation occasionally, and it's almost just like he needs to be in that environment to feel that he's getting charged up. You can see he's getting charged. He's like coming out like, yes, right. I've got to do this now. And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, okay. Right. Not doing anything for me. Yeah. Because if I want to work something out, I've got to work it out in my head.
Yeah.
If you can come to me and you're so passionate and you're saying yes, and I'm like, wow, I'm not like that. Because why? I'm not sensory. Like they said about extroverts. I don't look at that, my external, and I'm like, I take it all in, I soak it all in.
Yeah, you're very intent.
Yeah. I understand the message, I get the message. And like I was saying, history has shown that when people, like I said, introverts generally get it quicker because they're thinking about it, the message or whatever it is. If I give an example of Malcolm X, he knew the cause a lot earlier than Muhammad Ali. Yeah. So he understood it, but when Muhammad Ali got it, he took it onto another level. Only an extrovert can do that. Yeah. So I'm not asking introverts to become extroverts. I'm saying to you, as a force, can work well. So one person knows how to get to can plan the destination. The other one says, right, I know how to do it. Let's go and do it. That kind of a thing. Do you see? Yeah. That's the important thing. Another way you can tell that what kind of person you're dealing with is based on, like I was saying, their habits, right? Okay. So when you meet someone who engages with a lot of people and they're the soul of the party and they love to tell jokes, they say I think Jordan Peterson says that's the key. When you find people who talk about themselves and their experiences and tell jokes.
You're an extrovert?
Yeah, because that's what they like to do. They do that, yeah. And their likely occupations in today's day and age they'll do very well in sales and social networking because it's all about connecting with people and they love that. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. For all of you who are extroverts, that's where you will thrive. Okay? That's where you will find your power in order to do what it is that you need to do. Yeah. Don't go around changing the world to be like that. You can understand people work differently. And as I said, in a world which needs to be more introverted, realize that for yourself, solitude is sometimes a very good thing as well. Okay? Okay. So, Iman, now that we've spoken about an understanding of introversion and extroversion, right? Hopefully we've got a better understanding of it. Better understanding. Both you see yourself as an introvert, I see myself as an introvert. It's fantastic. But like I said, learn from the extrovert. Yeah. Don't need to be the extrovert. Know that there is a society that has a bias towards it, but we need to do more in order to understand that people who are wired up like we are need that time away to focus and recharge. Okay, we've looked at history, and we've taken two great people, Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, and this is where you can see that there is a bias towards the extrovert, because more people will know Muhammad Ali because how he was with his character than Malcolm X. Right? You'll find a book written by Malcolm X, a saying, a quote, this, that. He wasn't, when you put the camera on him, he was very he wasn't the kind of.
Yeah.
Do you see? That's because of obviously in front of a camera. This is what I mean. When the camera's on, they don't need a personality like that. They need someone who's going to be like how Muhammad Ali was. Because you'll be amazing in front of the camera. You'll get views. You'll get this. You'll get that. He's not doing it for that. He's doing it because that's how he is. That's how he knows how to deliver his message. But as I said, generally, you look at history, you'll see people will remember that trait more than the other. But when they work together, they're a power to be reckoned with. Now, when we look at our tradition, when we look at Islam, can you think of any combination similar to that?
Okay, so the first one that comes to my mind. So, the Sahaba, so Abu Bakr and Umar.
That's what
Them two, because
I had that written down.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because in school, we would have like assemblies and stuff in the Islamic school.
Okay.
And we'd have like a lot of the talks would be about them, like how they would compete but for good. Like I remember there's a story where they were like, I think I forgot, like it was ages ago. It was something to do with money, and like Umar, both of them, he was more rich, right? So I think he gave half of his wealth to this person, and then Abu Bakr gave all of his wealth to this person, but he wasn't as rich. So in value, Umar was more expensive, but then Abu Bakr got the because they used to compete, and the Prophet Muhammad said that Abu Bakr is they're gonna get the same amount of reward, I think it was, but he's done greater because of he's given everything, all he's got. And so like obviously they just always used to compete. I remember that the stories were all like who's better the person, not out of envy, just out of
goodness,
friendship. Yeah.
But in terms of personality types, who would you say is what?
Okay, so Abu Bakr, he was the introvert, and then Umar was the extrovert.
Okay, so let's put my theory into practice. Who do people quote more today when they talk about?
I think Umar.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The same way they would speak about Malcolm X more. Yeah?
Muhammad Ali.
Sorry. The same way they would speak about Muhammad Ali, history remembers Umar Razil Anhu and his, how he was as a character. And you can see the extroverts. Yes. Yeah, like that. Okay. And when you look at Abu Bakr, you'd be like, MashaAllah.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. Abu Bakr. And then you'd be like, Umar, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that. And it just goes to show that as a people, we haven't really come far, then have we? We haven't really learnt a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let's go one step further. Do you remember when I said that people who are introverts get it quicker?
Yeah.
So when you look at Abu Bakr Siddiq, and when the Prophet gave the message and said, this is the message given to me.
Yeah.
We all know that Abu Bakr took it immediately.
Yeah.
No quarrels, no arguments, no discussion, and nothing. You say we obey. Okay?
Yeah.
It's almost like his rational faculty did all the thinking, did all the pondering. He was aware of his situation, his circumstances, and he knew that something was going to happen.
Yeah.
He wasn't too busy in the externals. Yeah. You see Umar Razil in the wrestling, in this. He's busy in the externals.
Yeah.
So someone with how Abu Bakr's mind is, and again, I'm speculating. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm taking the same analogy as I did with Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X. So you've got one person who's doing a lot of the pondering thinking. So when the Prophet says, this is my message, I'm the Prophet, believe straight away. It's almost just like, it's like I came across this saying from, mashallah, well-respected sheikh from Pakistan, Dr. Israr Ahmed. Yeah. Probably one of the best sheikhs that Pakistan has produced. Okay. And he says an analogy. He goes, it's like a person in wudu waiting for salah. All right.
Yeah.
So you're waiting for the adhan.
Adhan, okay.
So you're prepared. So you're in wudu and you're just waiting for the adhan, then you get up and you read. That's the state of what Abu Bakr was. That he knew because he was that way inclined, that way of thought. And that's when the message was given to him, boom. It took Umar a lot longer, years, before he embraced Islam.
Yeah.
Okay? Years. Same way as Muhammad Ali. Took him, he didn't, you know, to his conversion to Islam, he had his pattern of Nation of Islam and all of that.
Yeah.
But to truly understand the message, it took him a lot longer. That's what happens. That's what I was saying. But when Umar got it, all right, then socially, he became a dominating force.
Yeah.
All right. So there's certain qualities that he had. Yes, he was bigger built. Abu Bakr was not as built. You know.
Yeah.
So physically he could be looking a bit more threatening, so people feel a bit more intimidated. I get that. But ultimately, when we look at the two personalities, we can see how the two worked, yet they competed with each other. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the Umar series, I suggest you do. It's an amazing 30 episodes.
The 30?
I think it was.
It was very long, 30 episodes.
It's like 45 minutes each episode.
Really? I remember watching it and it was so long. Anyway, carry on.
Okay. When you watch that,
Yeah.
look at the relationship they're trying to depict between Abu Bakr Siddiq and Umar radiallahu anhu.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You'll see what you said, that completeness and good. But what I took away from that is when Abu Bakr Siddiq was the Khalifa, okay? And he would give certain, right, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Umar would challenge.
Yeah.
Okay? And you'd see him. He'd come in, but like, no, how can we do this? And you'd see Abu Bakr who'd just be quiet. Say, okay, fine, listen to him, but we're going to do what I said. So that you can see the disputes happening between one another. We put love away, we put all of that respect one away. But Abu Bakr, because he was so like extroverted, he didn't do the thinking first. He just went out and said, no.
Yeah.
Okay? That it's almost just like he'll get himself into trouble first, but then it'll be like, no. And Abu Bakr was so, you see that character, that he understood his character so well that even he was just like, okay, let him say what he's got to say. Right, done? Excellent. But we're going to do this, right? And you'd see this exchange for a period of time. Now, when Abu Bakr passed away and Umar became the Khalifa, Allahu Alam, again I'm speculating, but in the way it was depicted, you would see the same way Muhammad Ali said, if only I could spend a bit more time with Malcolm. You saw the same thing from Umar saying about Abu Bakr Siddiq. Yeah? He would cry and supplicate and say, I get it now, Abu Bakr. What you said then, I get it now. So it took him time to process what he was saying, but Abu Bakr didn't argue it. But in his naivety, Umar radiallahu anhu was just like, no, it's got to be this way, that way, because he's using external forces in order to understand the world and what needs to be done and the challenges they had at that time. So it wasn't one demeaning the other. It was almost just like they understood one another's personality, but it was so, you could see the sincerity that even him in the episodes, he would say, I get it now. All right?
Yeah.
Now, how do you then think the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was?
Introvert. I think so, because actually, I think he was an introvert, but then it became a sort of an extrovert. Because I think at the beginning when he got the message, right, about Islam, he would give it discreetly. He would give it discreetly. He wasn't that kind of person who would give it out and tell everyone, right? He would slowly first give it to his family members and then go out, then his friends and that kind of stuff, right? And so people he trusted. And then afterwards, and then when he had his sahabas who slowly grew in number, then he started to go out a bit more and have his sahabas do it as well.
So we go with the introvert.
Yeah, I guess.
I think he was more ambivert. Well, actually, you know what? Maybe I believe that he started life off as an introvert, and then through self-development got to a position of ambivert, because you've seen places where he's socially challenged the situation.
Yeah.
And there's times where he's confined in solitude. Okay?
Yeah.
And understanding the best of both. There are times to speak, he spoke. There are times to be quiet, he was quiet. That's where you've got the best of both. This is why when someone like Carl Jung says that you are neither 100% one or the other, I think he says if you were, you'd be in a mental institute. right? So you're not exactly 100%. You lean one side to the other. But as life, as life teaches you, or if you are the good student and you want life to teach you, then you can learn certain skills about yourself and then take that journey to say, okay, I've got to learn to be a bit more like this. And again, something to think about would be that if we are supposed to emulate our prophet, we then have to understand where we are in this personality type and learn to kind of balance ourselves that way as well. What do you think?
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Right. So if we were to look at extroversion and introversion within Islam, the pros and cons. All right. I saw this article, which I'll put up on the show notes. And it said about the good things about being an extrovert, the good things about being an introvert, the bad things about being an extrovert, the bad things about being an introvert in terms of your religion perspective. So we can understand as Muslims where we're supposed to be. Okay. So it says the good things about an extrovert are you're friendly and approachable.
Mm-hmm.
You help others.
Yes.
Physically, you go out and help others. Okay. And you're around when you need to be. So you're always on call. Yeah, I need you. Yeah. 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 Great things about extrovert because they're always about helping out. Okay.
Yeah.
And your dean encourages that. So you got some points there. The bad things that I'm not saying every extrovert does this, but this is where people need to get themselves into check, is they can end up talking a lot. Bit of a chat boxy type person. Yeah. They lack a filter when they speak.
What do you mean by that?
They don't necessarily think before they speak. They just say things as it is, not realizing, hold on, I can say this differently, or I don't need to say it now, and do all of that thinking in their head and processing. It's almost just like they've got it in their head, they've got to say it out. So these are the faults. Yeah. These are the things that an extrovert needs to take more control over. The pros are where they can just be who they are. This is where they need to control themselves. So they need to learn to talk a bit less. They need to be, they need to realize that sometimes they may need to put a filter on what they say because it may affect the other person, what you're saying. This comes under manners. Remember we were talking about this. They need to appreciate being silent a bit more.
Okay.
Sometimes they need it to be busy that they don't appreciate the attributes of being silent. And sometimes people fall into this, if they don't control it, that they can almost crave attention. Because they get energized through people so much, they need people in their lives. And if you leave them to their own, they feel, oh my God, life's falling apart, what's going on? I need to be around people. Do you see?
Yeah.
So that can be a thing that can affect the extrovert. Now, the introvert. The good things about the introvert. They're generally more modest. They carry themselves more modestly. Okay? Tadabbur. You know what that means?
I've heard it before so many times, just forgot.
Reflection. They ponder and reflect a lot more.
Okay.
Okay? They generally don't like small talk. They like deep, meaningful conversations. They like the quiet and the seclusion. And they like to listen. They're good listeners. All right? So that's the good things. Now, the bad things. By secluding yourself too much, it means that you can not spend a lot of time with your family and friends and be around people you need to be, which is a bad thing. You need to be a bit more social. Yeah? You need to be out and about a bit more. Sometimes you can be guilty of not visiting your family and your friends because of that reason. Oh, no, I want to be my own type of thing. Yeah. And you can often, like I said, with the extrovert, you can fall into the craving attention. Here, you can fall into isolating yourself from everyone. Okay. So these are a bit of pros and cons on both personality types. And it's kind of an Islamic perspective. I'll put the show notes where I found this from, but it's a good read. But it's to, like I said, the general podcast of today's show is to kind of debunk the myth of the introvert-extrovert arguments. It doesn't have to be a versus thing. It's only become a versus thing because we're living more, as Susan says, there's a natural bias and tendency leaning towards extroversion. We're asked to be a bit more outspoken. We need to be a bit more like this. And we've changed from where we were. And we have to realize that there are, we need to make the world a bit more balanced, and it starts from our schooling as children to understand that the child who's the quiet one, not necessarily the shy one, but needs to be able to, they're on their own journey because they need to logically think something better. They're more analytical. That's how their mind works. the ones who are extroverted, who say things as they are. Enjoy that. But as people, as human beings and as adults, we need to find ourselves to be and work upon ourselves so that if we are more introverted, we lean over there. We need to lean a bit more on the other side and learn traits that will help us there. And personally speaking, if it wasn't for the business, if it wasn't for the people in my life, and if it wasn't for the ability for me to say, I want to help me, I want to better myself, I could have been the same guy. Yeah, I've been put in different situations where I've had to voice an opinion, not because I wanted to, because things had to get said. It's almost like certain people I'm going to talk to you about, you know, I'll go through them briefly. The reason when I say, you know, in this quiz that we will do, that when you think of them, you may thought, hold on, but they did this, that, and the other. It's because they had to say things, not necessarily because they wanted to, because they had to. So there's been situations where I've had to do things, not because I wanted to, because they had just had to be done.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing. So I think the main thing of this podcast is to take away and reflect upon ourselves and realize that it's not a war between the two. Realize who you are, realize where you side, and everyone should be on their own self-actualization journey. Know your potentials, possibilities, what drives you, what you enjoy. And the world needs to be a bit more tolerant towards the introverts and realize that they work in a different way. But as I said, history has proven that, yes, they do generally get things a lot quicker, but sometimes they need to be a bit more impulsive, not think as much. And these are things that each and every one of us can take a bit more. So I hope this podcast sheds some light on the two different personality types. And I do hope you enjoyed this. What we're going to do now, or what I'm going to do with Iman, is we're going to play a quick quiz. I'm going to shout some names out at you. Not literally, but I will say some names, and you tell me if you think they're introverts or extroverts.
All right.
Okay, so I think I've got about 60 names here.
60?
16.
Oh,
16.
Okay.
16. No, 16 names. And so you tell me if you think they're introverts or extroverts, okay?
Okay.
So let's start with Bill Gates. Introvert or extrovert? Oh, no. Okay, yeah, go. Introvert, extrovert. Bill Gates.
Okay, Bill Gates. I think you just said like earlier on, was he an introvert? Hey.
Introvert. Yes, because I said he saw himself as an introvert and he just hired the best extroverts to sell the products.
Yeah.
Clever man. Okay. Steve Jobs.
Maybe because they were like in the same industry. I'm going to say introvert again. Oh, he's an extrovert.
He was an extrovert.
Ah.
He was very public with what he wanted to say, and he had this, you know, so he had this thing about him. Okay. Malcolm X.
Okay, he's introvert.
Muhammad Ali.
Extrovert.
Mahatma Gandhi.
Introvert, because he used to think a lot in it. Yeah.
In what he said, certain things he said, they said he was he said about himself, he was so introverted that, again, he only did things because he had no choice. They had to be done. There was no other person that was doing them, so he had no choice. Nelson Mandela.
Extrovert?
No, you're right. Sorry. No. Sorry, you were right. Nelson Mandela was an extrovert.
Okay.
Einstein.
Okay, I'm not so sure. I think he's saying introvert just because most of the time when you think of him just in his like mad scientist kind of sort of thing. Yeah.
Plato.
Don't really know much about him, but I'm just guessing he's an extrovert too. An extrovert?
Steven Spielberg.
I don't know. I know he's a bit socially awkward sometimes.
Okay.
But then I don't know if that makes him an introvert. But
give me an answer.
Okay, I'm gonna just say extrovert. No, he's introvert. Okay.
Should have gone with your gut feeling, young lady. Sometimes as introverts, we have to go with our gut feeling. We overthink things. Isaac Newton. Introvert, extrovert.
He's the one who discovered gravity, right? Okay, so an apple fell on his head. So he was on his own at the time, so I'm just saying he's an introvert. Okay.
I love the way you're breaking this down. Oh my God. Leonardo da Vinci.
Artists are like, from experience, they're very much like they lock themselves up and they just go crazy. So then I'm just saying he's an introvert too. No, extrovert.
There you go.
Oh my goodness.
See, your logical thinking didn't work there, young lady. Mark Zuckerberg.
Wait, this is a guy who was socially. This is Facebook, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I did it. Okay. Steven Spielberg's the one. Okay.
Steven Spielberg's the one who makes the movies. The director.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, other way.
Well, you got him right anyway.
Okay.
So Mark Zuckerberg is Facebook.
Introvert. Yeah.
Okay. We have Abraham Lincoln.
I think extrovert because he used to talk a lot, isn't it? Did he used to like talk a lot?
You weren't listening to what I was saying. He was an introvert.
Was it? Yeah, you were speaking out on the other.
No problem. Dr. Martin Luther King.
Extrovert. Yeah.
J.K. Rowling.
Okay. Writers are usually introverts. Yeah.
And last but not least, Mr. Elon Musk.
Extrovert. No! Last one. Introvert.
He is an introvert. Have you not seen him speak? Watch him.
Really?
Yeah.
Actually, because you know what? I look at... I don't really actually see his interviews or anything. I just know him off like, memes.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Just that. That's how I basically know like Tesla and that kind of stuff.
Okay. But it's interesting if you just read their psychology, how they speak, how they talk. There's certain people like Jordan Peterson is someone I put into the education podcast and the clip. If you see him talk, he pauses. You'll ask him a question.
Just very quiet.
He'll think about it. It's just this awkward silence. Like, why are you not saying that? He doesn't jump into it. He'll be like, quiet. Okay. You can see he's processing and then he says it. Okay. Great quality of an introvert. Elon Musk as well does the same thing. Someone asking a question, he'll be like, then he'll speak. But you can see it's not planned because sometimes the way he's talking, he's just watch it. You'll get what I'm saying.
Okay.
All right, guys. So we're going to wrap it up there for today. Thank you very much, Iman. It's been brilliant having you on the show again.
Thank you.
So remember, guys, you can go to www.minimalisticmuslim.com to play this podcast and to also get the show notes and see what references and everything I've referenced or everything that I've said. Everything that I've said you could find from the website. And also you can visit iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. There's some various other ones I can't remember, but you can download the podcast from there. So remember the lessons that we said in this podcast, and inshallah we hope to see you on the next one. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah
wa barakatuh.